Your old strategy for sales and marketing just won't work. And neither will the next one, and neither will the one after that. Well, sure, they'll work for a while, and then they won't. Why for a while and then not? Buyers change, or put another way, when you introduce an innovation to the market, there's a certain segment of the market that finds it really attractive. And then there's a different segment who's the next group to come along, and a different segment who's the next group after that to come along. So should our strategy for sales and marketing then really just be around finding which industries each of those segments are going to exist within? Well, no, absolutely not. And then yes, and then not, and then not, and then yes. In this blog, I'll show you how to determine the right target market for your product based on buyer maturity. Funnel Vision is brought to you by Math Marketing, creators of the Funnel Plan. Math Marketing is the source of the 1, 2, 3 of B2B. We all know about technology adoption curves, the idea of an early adopter in the beginning and laggards in the end and the majority in the middle. That's not new to us. In fact, 10th graders know about this concept. Despite that very basic understanding, we all get it wrong pretty often. What we often do is we plot ourselves on the curve. It's not about you as the seller, it's about where are your buyers. Is it largely full of early adopters, or is it largely full of laggards, or are there subtle variations between those two extremes? Where is your market is the real question. Given that it's about the buyer, our strategy for sales and marketing should reflect who the buyer is at any point in time. And in this blog, I'll show you how to work out where your buyers are and therefore what your strategy should be. Whenever there's a new innovation in the market, there's a small group of buyers willing to be first. Well, they're willing to be first because they figure that if they take the risk and it pays off, there'll be some return for having taken that risk. So what do they need? They need the opportunity to make a return. The next group of buyers are not motivated by that. They're a slightly more pragmatic group, and they'll say to you, I know that that other company adopted early, but they always do and they make mistakes. I'm a little more conservative than that. I'm not late, but I'm not that early either. And what am I looking for? I want proof. I need to know that this is going to work. So the buyer in that stage of the maturity is actually after a different need. They're after proof, and it's the group of buyers that you want to target who are looking for that proof. The next group of buyers really just want access. It's kind of everybody. They just want to get access to the product because it's been proven by that second group of buyers, and it's been the very early idea has been identified by the earliest group. So the third group just want access, and the next group really, they just want to get the product the way that they want to get it, and it's kind of everybody. And finally, as the market starts to max out, we could wait for the laggards to come on board, but we could also slow the decline down by finding new uses and new users. What's the effect of all of that on your strategy for sales and marketing? It's quite simple. You need to know how mature your market is before you can determine who to target. Shortly, I'll show you how to do this in Funnel Plan, but before that, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to share with you my conclusions, and I'm going to invite you to receive other blogs like this. Let's get to the conclusion first. In the early stage of any innovation cycle, you're after the early adopters, wherever they may be. She or he may be in an oil company, a retailer, a bank. You just don't know. So your strategy at this stage, or your targeting strategy at this stage, is all around cherry picking. You're going very broadly, but you're looking for the early adopter from any sector. So it's broad, but cherry picked from the broad. And remember, the next group, they want proof. The best way to give them proof is if they find other people just like them buying this product or service. So now you go from broad to micro niche. so that everybody in that micro niche draws comfort from everybody else having adopted. Then you take a second niche and a third niche and a fourth niche and a fifth niche. At some point, it's kind of silly to talk about your 10th niche because really everybody's buying it. And that's when you're in the hypergrowth stage of any market. When everybody's buying, it's now a question of from whom. Who should you target at that stage? Well, it's kind of everybody. But let's take a look at the role as that's changed in those 3 stages. I'll come to the main street, the most mature stage, shortly. But let's deal just with those first 3. The innovative buyer, you're typically after the CEO or general manager of the user division of the business. In the pragmatic stage, you're after the pragmatist is going to be also a general manager. In the hypergrowth period of the market, or the tornado, as Geoffrey Moore, the author of this model, refers to it, in the hypergrowth period of that market, then you're really after the retailer. You're targeting the channel, whoever they are. You're targeting the channel because the end user buyer is kind of everybody. So now you put your effort on targeting the channel. Main Street, when the market's at its largest, sure, it's growing less, but it's still large, so it's a nice market. Now you're targeting the infrastructure buyer because this is the 3rd or 4th go-round for most companies in the market. And so they know how to buy this stuff. You think about the roles that you're targeting. You've gone from CEO of a whoever, wherever, to general manager of a micro niche, to targeting the channel for broad distribution, and then you're targeting the infrastructure buyer, that's IT, finance, production, supply, those sort of infrastructure groups, very different group from a very broad part of the market. And then finally, when the market maxes out and you want to look for new users, it's kind of rinse and repeat, because in the new user segment, you need the early adopters, and then you need the pragmatists and so on. So the cycle kind of repeats. And that's who you should be targeting based on buyer maturity. Well, if you enjoyed this blog, then likely you'll enjoy others. If you haven't already, can I invite you to subscribe to receive this blog? Go to mathmarketing.com/blog and either subscribe to the twice a week blog, or if you prefer, the once a month, which has a recap of all the key blogs from the month. Frankly, what most people do is subscribe to both, and you're welcome to do that. Now, if you prefer, you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel here and can consume these blogs in that way. Now, if you have already, but you've got a colleague who hasn't, then now would be a great time to invite them, and I'd be so grateful if you do that. Why don't you do that now? Either subscribe or flick it along to a friend. Come back and I'll show you how we do that in Funnel Plan. The Funnel Plan allows you to describe your objectives, your strategy, the velocity and the tactics. And of course, today we're going to look at the strategy, and more particularly, we're going to take a look at the target market that you've selected. We're going to impact or make decisions around the role, the organisation type, how much focus we give to each of them, and how mature they are as a buyer. Let's take a look at that within the Funnel Plan software. And the plan I'm after is the vlogging video. Let's go straight through to that. I'm after strategy, and in particular, we're going to make decisions around the target market. Now, here are my 3 segments. Of course, I can add a new segment if I want. I don't want to on this occasion. I can edit also any of these strategies. Now, the business type is who is it that's most impacted by the problem. We've already covered that. We're looking now at the maturity. So we can now input where we think the buyer is in their maturity. Early market, that's where the early adopters and risk takers are. Bowling alley is our strategy for the early micro niche when we're looking for pragmatic buyers, broad pragmatic buyers, everybody, now the infrastructure buyer, and finally towards end of life. The key points here are 2. Firstly, choose how mature you think the market is, but also take a look at, are you actually targeting the right role based on the maturity of the market? Second thing to take a look at is how much focus, how much of your emphasis should you give to each market. Now, the combination of the focus and the maturity ends up impacting where they sit on the maturity curve that I showed you earlier. If any of that needs reinforcing at any point, remember just to bring out the Help Centre. Hover on the label of the section that you want some input on, and you'll get some text help. You can scroll through the text help. But there's also a copy of the video explaining how to think about each section. Make use of the Help Centre all the way through Funnel Plan. And that's it. We already chose last week the organisation type and the role most impacted. What we've done today is to take a look at the maturity and how much of our focus to give each of those markets. In next week's show, I'll show you how to set your product strategy, because the solution strategy changes just as materially as your targeting strategy changes as the market matures. I'll show you that next week, but for now, may your funnel be full and always flowing.